And welcome into the Fantasy 4-Pack's favorite late-round targets episode. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined, as always, by Frankie Santiago. Unfortunately, we are sans Matt Vitale. Today, he is feeling a little under the weather due to work this week, so...
We are comic sans Matt Vitale.
Yes, we are going to be presenting his takes as he has transcribed them into our show doc, but unfortunately, he is not here to deliver them himself. But he'll be back next week, so this is more of just a tired under the weather than a actual under the weather.
Well,
So
he could get hit by a bus.
barring unforeseen circumstances, he'll be back next week.
Well, we have to plan for injury, Ian.
No, you don't. Yeah, where's our next man up? No. Before we dive into the news of the show or anything. As a reminder, if you aren't already doing it, make sure to follow us on social media. You can see those all around the screen here. At Fantasy 4-Pack for the show channel, at Fantasy4P_Ian, at The Spoon for Vitale, that's FPOON, and at Senpai Koala for Frankie. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Hit that notification bell, and make sure to get those shares out there if you like what we're bringing to the table. Any sort of interaction like that helps our channel grow, and if our channel can grow, we can bring you guys more fantasy content. A little bit of news before we dive in. Devonte Parker, Hammy, participated in team drills wearing a no-contact jersey, though. We don't care about this, right? I mean, I love Devonte Parker. I was actually talking to some... talking about him at work the other day. It's like he has to be one of the most unfortunate receivers in football right now. Where it's like every time it looks like he's getting ready to break out, it's like he gets injured, or like Adam Gase is on the team now,
the thing that kind of sucks with him is I had him last year, and there were a couple of games where he was not out there because he was injured dealing with a hammy or whatever. But when he was out there, he was putting up points.
And they sign Will Fuller and draft Jalen Waddle, and suddenly he's, the 3 on his own team. Maybe the 4.
Maybe the 4. I mean, Jaceki exists.
Yeah, Jaceki's no schlub. So, he's someone who I guess I'm at least keeping an eyeball on him to see if he's going to be healthy and participating, because obviously we know Fuller doesn't have the greatest injury history in the world. Waddle is a rookie. Although it doesn't look like it in August, there is a world where Devonte Parker is still this team's number 1 wide receiver in a month. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, especially if they're able to move personnel around the field. I mean, maybe he starts playing inside.
Oh, sure, but I think if everyone plays, he's not going to be fantasy relevant. But it wouldn't shock me if Will Fuller's injury carries into the season, or he's just unable to get it going this season, and Jalen Waddle just takes some time to get acclimated to the NFL game, because not everyone's Justin Jefferson.
Well, I mean, he took 3 weeks.
Well, sure, but I'm saying would it really shock you if Devonte Parker at least carries fantasy value through this season?
No, because
he already has rapport with Tua. He's the vet on the team.
I don't think that they're gonna be a super pass heavy. I don't think they're going to be a super lot of plays team, to be honest, because if this defense keeps up the way it did last year, they're basically just going to want to get ahead in games, have Tua manage the field.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it. I think there's going to be one pass catcher you want on this team. It's just figuring out who it is. But I think it's going to be Will Fuller. If it ends up being Devonte Parker, I'll be a little surprised, but not super shocked, because he's the guy who already knows the system. He's already had a year with the quarterback. There is some intrinsic value to that, but we'll see. I guess he has to get on the field and start taking contact drills before he can try and rise up the totem pole a little bit. Yeah. Speaking of Dolphins wide receivers, Will Fuller, undisclosed injury, who has missed almost the entire preseason now with this undisclosed injury, was still limited to individual drills this week, so unable to get it going at all, pretty much. Outside of, stationary bike type shit.
So, are we starting to think that this is something serious, or?
I mean, I would assume that if he's been held out of the preseason with an undisclosed injury, it's at least a little serious.
So, are we thinking that this... Okay, so let me rephrase. Do we think that this is a Kenny Golladay injury, or do we think that this is a Julio Jones injury?
I think that it's Will Fuller and the man has been plagued with injuries his entire career, and honestly, it wouldn't shock me if this is just the Dolphins keeping him out of any sort of contact situation at all to make sure he's good to go following his week 1 suspension. It also wouldn't shock me if he has some sort of devastating injury that's not quite bad enough to get surgery, but it's gonna take some rehab, and that's what he's been doing. Like it could be. That's the issue with the undisclosed tag. It could be anything.
I think that they should just tell us what it is.
Yeah, it's especially kind of suspicious given that his teammate also has an injury, and we know what it is.
Yeah.
So they're willing to say Devonte Parker is a hammy, but Will Fuller, something on his body is hurt.
Yeah, I don't think that helps us as fantasy analysts do our jobs any.
I mean, I will say I'll buy the injury dip on him because he's going. He's not going to be one of my favorite late round picks, but like he's going pretty late, and we know that he's an excellent player. Like
yeah, he's.
I'll roll those dice. I'll buy that discount and see if I get anything out of it.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely a high upside play. Excuse me. Partially being, more than likely probably being the one. And also, we know that he's capable of getting those big plays off. He's always been that downfield threat. So,
yeah.
I mean, I will happily take him at his depressed price, even with that, suspension and this lingering injury, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I hope we get some, closure on that soon. I would like to at least know what it is so that I can try and, project a little bit better, figure out if I actually want to draft him or if this is a, if this is where it should be completely hands off and we're like, it could be nothing. Odell Beckham knee participated in team drills this week. He looks like he is on track to start the season. Sammy Watkins, also undisclosed, but it has been said that he is very minorly hurt. He's just being held out until week 1, so he's 100% when the season starts. Makes sense. Sammy Watkins, another guy who's dealt with nagging injuries over the course of his career. If he gets a little banged up in preseason, just sit him down, let him wait till week 1.
Yeah, and he's got to be ready to go out there.
The man runs really fast in a straight line. Like
he's got to be able to go out there, get 146 yards and 3 touchdowns in week 1, then just
he has to get
disappear off your radar.
All of his production in 1 week. Dak Prescott lat also looked good in practice. They're saying he's no longer on a pitch count. Should be good to start the season. So great news for anyone who's rooting for the Cowboys or Cowboys fantasy weapons. Noah Fant. Is it Fant or Font?
I want to say it's Fant.
Noah Fant, leg, will not play in the final preseason game, but the team expects him to be ready for the regular season. A lot of that type of news going on today or this week. Saquon Barkley, the Giants have been having joint practice with the Patriots this week, and he finally saw live action. First of the preseason. He said his knee felt good afterwards. They still aren't saying if he's going to be good to go week 1, but I'll take what I can get, I guess. I mean, if he's at least able to, get out there and mix it up in joint practices and, not be worried about how his knee's holding up, that has to be at least a slightly good sign.
If he's not ready, if we find out that he is not ready to go week 1, are you taking him in the first round?
Sure, end of the first round.
Like 11, 12?
Yeah, I'd say around pick 10 is probably where I start looking at Saquon Barkley as a viable option.
All right.
I mean, I'm looking at the first round right now. I don't take him ahead of Christian. I don't take him ahead of Dalvin. I don't take him ahead of Derek. I don't take him ahead of Alvin Kamara, Zeke, Chubb, Aaron Jones. Yeah, and I probably take Devonte Adams ahead of him too. So I think pick 9 would really be where assuming that those are the first 8 picks, pick 9 would really be where I start looking at him. Because that's where it starts to get a little more questionable for me. Like Jonathan Taylor, obviously he's rising back to prominence, but I still think that his ceiling is limited due to the fact that his pass catching upside just isn't as much there as some of the other guys. What about you? Is that kind of where you're looking at too, or are you willing to roll the dice on him a little bit more?
Honestly, I might take Taylor over him. And
I just think Saquon's talent ceiling is higher.
Yeah, but we talk about how important those first weeks are, and I mean, that's basically. I mean, that one win can be the difference.
I mean, if you're drafting Barkley, you have to draft to protect yourself against the chance that he either isn't there at the start of the season or is slow to start the season.
Well, no, and that's the thing, and that's a luxury I think that you get with Taylor. I mean, he doesn't have the upside long term, but if you draft with Taylor, you don't have to account for him missing week 1, and also you can still have roughly the same draft. As far as, I mean, basically the only difference is going to be you're going to get Taylor without having that worry of week. I mean, and again, this is a context question too. This is just like he's not going to be there week 1.
Sure.
Not like, oh, it's a hammy. Oh, it's a.
So like I start looking at Barkley around where Jonathan Taylor's going, because all of those guys that I mentioned that I wouldn't take him over currently, I wouldn't take him over those guys. I think all of those guys have relatively clear paths to being a top 5, maybe top 3 running back. Whereas Jonathan Taylor's where I start being like, okay, maybe the path gets a little murky here. Whereas Saquon Barkley, once he gets healthy, I could see him, rising to prominence again and becoming a top 5, top 3 back. So but you might have to wait a little bit for that. So that's why I'm willing to start looking at him there. Tannehill was placed on the COVID reserve list. There's another just outbreak of COVID going on in Tennessee. This happened last season where they were just infecting every team they went near.
Yeah, I think it said they went to Tampa or something, and then they came back and.
Yeah, someone over there needs to get fired, because this should not be happening again with the same team, and it's affecting like everyone on the team right now. I guess they are, unless they're fibbing the numbers, they have pretty decent vaccination rates on the team. I believe they're like north of 95%, but they need to be taking more care, especially this close to the season. I don't think it changes how I'm drafting any Titans at this moment. But if closer to the season they're still dealing with the ramifications from this, I might start dropping them down my draft boards.
I mean, games are creeping up. What is it? First game September 9th?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, if this is still a big issue like next week, I probably start dropping them down draft boards. Right now, we're still far enough out where they could get free and clear of this, and I'm not worried about it. And then finally, TJ Hawkinson has been dealing with an AC joint injury, but it is not supposed to be a week 1 issue for him. They expect him to be ready to go over there. Are you still drafting Hawkinson in the 5th, or is a shoulder injury kind of, make you worried about him?
I mean, personally, no. I would say maybe bump him back around. Maybe. I mean,
if you bump him back around, just not getting him.
Yeah. I mean,
he's been going very consistently in the 5th in like basically every draft and mock draft I've done this year. Are you let's say that this shoulder does carry into the season. Are you comfortable taking him in the 5th, or are you just passing on Hawkinson if he goes into the season injured?
I'm passing on him. I would much rather have a running back or wide receiver there.
Okay. Well, that's it for news today, unless you got anything that I didn't mention.
Well, unsurprisingly, the Jags named.
I'm not even talking about
Trevor Lawrence the starter.
That decision was made when they drafted Trevor Lawrence.
Well, I mean we've seen people like Justin Fields think that we're going to see the obvious, and
right. The difference is Chicago and San Francisco have Andy Dalton and Jimmy Garoppolo there, who are at least competent starters. Whereas, as much as I love Gardner Minshew, he's not. And then on top of that, Trey Lance and Justin Fields, while they are great quarterbacks, and I personally believe they are going to, probably surpass Trevor Lawrence, because I don't really see it with him. He's looked like the worst rookie so far out of the 5 of them. He is supposed to be at least a generational talent, the best quarterback since Luck. All of this, fleeble flobble that they associate to him. If you draft him as the number 1, if you believe in that, that's the only reason you would take him there. You have to start him out of the gate. You cannot spend that kind of draft capital on someone to have them ride the pine.
I mean, this might be a hot take, but I think that any quarterback that's taken in like the top 15 you need to do that for. I mean, we've seen.
I mean, I was reading an article today about rookie quarterbacks, and I believe it was a PFF article, but rookie quarterbacks play on average, like I believe it was 14 games a season, and so like they're going to be in there for the majority of the season. There's a reason, or these rookie quarterbacks taken in the first round. There's a reason they're taken so highly.
Yeah, I just don't.
Also, teams that have established incumbents typically don't draft first-round quarterbacks.
Yeah, but it's like I mean, we talked about this a little bit last episode. We've seen what Andy Dalton is. Like, he's an average quarterback.
Right.
Why not just throw...
Meat shield.
Oh, well, actually, Andy Dalton makes more sense.
Meat shield.
We'll save him for week 2. Trey Lance.
Yep.
We've seen what Jimmy is. He's had his good games, but overall he's pretty much just a very average quarterback.
And as you will find out when I talk about Trey Lance later this episode, I don't believe that Jimmy is going to be the starter for very long, if he is the starter at all.
Yeah, I just think that you can't afford to sit somebody that you spent, a first round or let alone a top 15 pick on. It just doesn't make sense to me.
All right, you ready to start this episode off?
Sure, why not?
All right. Well, let's launch this off here. So we are going to start off with Vitali's 2 picks, and then we're going to move on to ours. So I'll lead this show off. I think it's been a minute since I've done that. With Vitali's first favorite late round pick, Mr. Laviska Shenault Jr. ADP 110. He is, widely touted, or has been widely touted as one of fantasy's darling wide receivers. People loved him last year. He's coming into what should be a strong second season for him. He's probably the most talented receiver on that team at this point. He gets a big upgrade with Trevor Lawrence coming in, or as he should hypothetically. Travis Etienne is out for the season. There's no tight end to speak of on the roster. We know Viska can mix it up on the ground as well as through the air, so he should get some running work, as well as get a lot of that short yardage work based on the routes he runs. And honestly, with his size, speed, and just the Jags being unlikely to have more than one productive fantasy receiver, he's probably the only one you want to take a bet on. Like, Chark's too expensive. Marvin Jones is 32, 33. Like, as much as I like some of the other options, he definitely presents the most upside, in my opinion, out of any of the Jags receivers. That's a little that last one is my point that I added on there, but most of those were Vitali's points.
Yeah,
I don't hate the Viska pick at all. I think that if you believe in Viska, go ahead and grab him. He's a talented kid who could break out in a big way this year.
Yeah, I think honestly, the best comp for me is, how we've seen Mike Williams when he's had an average quarterback is he's capable of having those big games, and I think that, comparing him to Marvin Jones, I'm sorry for not clarifying. That's why I don't like him, is because he's going to either have those big games or he's going to have, very average, small number games.
Sure.
Viska's definitely going to be the guy who's going to get the volume on this team, and I think that I agree. I think he's the one guy that you want to have.
All right, Vitali. All right, stand-in Vitali. What's your second pick?
Well, it would appear as though Vitali shares the sentiment for Mr. Michael Pittman.
Yeah, he's really hammering his second-year breakouts.
Yeah, another second-year guy. Again, kind of similar to one of my guys. He has a very impressive build. That's 6'4", 225. A little bit faster with a 4.5 40-yard dash. Reports coming out of camp are showing that Nelson and Wentz are going to be ready to go.
Yeah, that is... Like, the 5 to 12 week timetable was kind of scary.
Yeah.
So it's definitely encouraging that they're both supposed to be back so even if they come back slow because injury, it's encouraging they're coming back so quickly.
Yeah, and especially with T.Y. getting up there in age and Paris Campbell having those health issues, not.
Frankie, you have to mention Vitali's note there that even T.Y.'s grandmother noticed that T.Y. was slowing down.
She's got football eyes, so she's probably onto something there. But I kind of agree a little bit with, this take that Pittman, I mean, assuming all goes right, could end up even as the number one on that team as far as wide receivers go.
Sure.
Looking back at, the quarterback now, 2017, the MVP season, or I guess near MVP season for Carson Wentz. Alshon Jeffrey saw 120 targets, 9 touchdowns. The rest of his stat line was meh, but if Pittman can, fill that role, I don't think he's going to hit 120 targets, but
I mean, I think the biggest upside for Pittman, because Pittman's a guy that I've talked to Vitaly about ad nauseum. I'm a big Pittman fan. I think that the biggest upside for Pittman on this team is that there really is no one else. T.Y. Hilton's a great receiver, but he's aging out of the league. Paris Campbell can't stay on the field, and at this point, it's questionable to even assume that he's going to ever be anything in the NFL. It's looking like the second best receiver on this team is Zach Pascal, who's just kind of there. Like he's going to catch some balls, but he's not going to wow you. He's like a bye week fill-in. Like this should be Michael Pittman's team.
Yeah, I think that it makes sense that he's going 5 picks after, but I think that he's kind of in the same situation like Laviska is, where he's the one who's going to see a lot of that volume, and T.Y. is probably going to be...
I'd say he's in a better situation than Viska because Pittman has a more complete offense around him. He has a quarterback who's already been in the NFL. He has one of the best offensive lines in football. He has a really smart head coach in Frank Reich. And the receivers around him are worse than the receivers that Viska has to contend with.
So what I was trying to say was he's in a situation where he's going to be that guy who's going to get that volume, rather than, what we've seen T.Y. do in the past.
Sure.
And I think T.Y. is going to kind of be, either, maybe even phased out, but he'll probably be put in that, wide out 2 slot and be the guy taking the shots down the field.
I don't know if he has the speed for that anymore. I think that T.Y. might just be, washed. But that unfortunately happens to even the greats. All right, I will take the reins here and jump to my first guy, my actual first guy, not a stand-in first for Vitaly. We talk about another receiver. We're keeping this trend going here. Unsurprisingly, there aren't really a lot of late-round running backs that we're super interested in. So
I had one, but that ship kind of sailed today with the trading of Sonny Michel to the Rams.
Who, Darrell Henderson?
No, I had Xavier Jones. Who I do like really light, if you guys...
No, yeah, I picked up Xavier Jones in my work league, following the Darrell Henderson thumb injury news, and then immediately dropped him when the Sonny Michel trade came in. I was like, well, he's useless.
Yeah, that was unlucky, but yeah, we have a lot of wide receivers here.
So I'm talking about Corey Davis here. ADP 117, going off the board as the wide receiver 46 right now. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that, one, it's Corey Davis. Ew, gross, don't touch him. Like, this bias that fantasy managers have built up against Corey Davis over the years because he came in with all this draft pedigree and all these expectations, and he let everyone down year after year after year. But he actually was pretty good last year.
Are you saying he's no longer the ghost of Corey Davis?
No, I'm not. So last year he was the wide receiver 31, and that was with him missing some games. He played in 14, started 12, but he didn't even play a full season last year. Finished the wide receiver 31 on a low volume passing attack where he was the wide receiver 2 in his own system because he was He was getting whatever A.J. Brown couldn't catch, basically. And that was good enough for the Jets to sign him to a 3-year, $35 million deal this offseason. I mean, that's a pretty good indication that they want to have him be a focal point of their offense. You don't pay someone that kind of money to have them come in and just, ho-hum, catch 40 balls and go home. On top of that, I mentioned that he was the wide receiver 31 last season. 65 catches, 95 targets, just shy of 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like that's pretty good numbers, right? Like, not upset about that at all. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy with just that, but I think he has the real chance to exceed those numbers with this Jets team because people are just kind of taking an unfair approach to how this Jets team is going to be. I think they're attributing too much real football to this team, ignoring the potential fantasy upside of it. Because Zach Wilson's looked good this preseason. And the Jets are going to be a bad team. Like, just objectively bad. They play in a tough conference. The Bills are good. Their division should be gangbusters. The Bills are good. The Dolphins are good. The Patriots should be improved, especially if Mac Jones is starting for them. Like, they could be the fourth best team in the AFC or the AFC East. So they're going to have to throw a lot. I was talking to you about this pre-show, but it's like one of the reasons that I like Corey Davis so much, outside of I'll get to his preseason numbers in a moment, but like one of the reasons I like Corey Davis so much is because like there are a lot of guys going around him that need a lot of things to go right for them to actually capitalize on their upside. Corey Davis going at pick 117, he's going in like the 9th or 10th round. I can't do mental math that quickly, but like that's like he's going somewhere in between the 9th and 11th round. And at wide receiver 46, all he needs to have a legit shot at, true top 24 wide receiver upside is for Zach Wilson to not suck. That's it. Because so far in the preseason, he's been targeted 10 times. He's caught 6 passes, 88 yards, touchdown. He's looked great. He's being targeted on something like 80% of the routes that he runs. Like, he's clearly, even with that small sample size, in my opinion, he's clearly the one on this team. So as long as Zach Wilson isn't a dud, as long as he can go out there and at least get the ball to Corey Davis is going to have a productive season. Because that's just how football works. Someone has to, I say this all the time, but someone has to catch the football. This someone is looking like it's going. Everyone wants it to be Elijah Moore or Denzel Mims. It's going to be Corey Davis. He's the most tenured person on this team. He just got paid a bunch of money. He's looking like he has rapport with Zach Wilson already in the preseason. And the best thing about him is that at wide receiver 46, if for some reason I'm wrong and he sucks, you can just cut him. He costs you nothing to get. And you're taking him in a range where the guys around him, I mean, I'll pull up the ADP right now, but like the guys around him are just not good. I mean, if we're looking at Corey Davis's ADP compared to some of the guys around him, Corey Davis is going just behind Devonta Smith. It looks like going next to Will Fuller, going ahead of Visca. Like, that's a good range where it's like he already has the tools he needs to. I'm sorry, that was draft rankings, not ADP. Sorry, he's going just behind Mike Williams, Jalen Waddle, and Curtis Samuel, and ahead of Jamal Williams and Michael Gallup and Tony Pollard. Like, wouldn't you rather have him than those names I just mentioned? He's actually going after Visca.
Yeah.
Like, the Henry Ruggs and Marquise Brown or the wide receiver 49 and the wide receiver 50, like, the guys he's going around, just there's no contest in my mind for like who I'd rather have when I'm in those rounds trying to pick a receiver. Because I doubt that a lot of those guys, I might never get a usable week out of them. I don't know. Like, do you have any counter thoughts there, or do you basically agree with everything I'm saying about Corey Davis?
Corey Davis is a guy I've liked for a long time, despite all of the jokes that I had to say about Corey Davis. He's always, I mean, last year he had a good year, but he was also playing in the shadow of my favorite news.
A very large shadow, yes. Hard to see the football when it gets lost in, the shadow of that Titan.
But no, again, he didn't play all last year. He had I think probably his best season as far as how he looked on the field. I don't know about numbers, but
it was pretty close to his best season numbers-wise as well.
I mean, I think that on this team, similar to both guys we talked about before, I think he's going to be kind of just the guy. He's going to be the guy who's going to be getting a lot of those targets. He'll probably lead this league in targets. It's not league.
Lead the league in targets. You heard it here first, folks. Frankie loves Corey Davis.
You know what? Stamp it. He is going to lead the league in targets. But all jokes aside, I do like Elijah Moore as well. I think he's another guy to look at even later. But I don't think he has the same upside that Davis does. Because Davis, I think, is, again, going to thrive off that volume he's going to get. And I think that just based on, maybe he gets a couple more looks in the end zone. But, I mean, again, he had those numbers last year. I would have been happy with that where he's going right now.
Listen, I like him a lot. I think he's a great target in that range. Who's your first guy, Frankie?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It's another guy who has experience and for some reason is being completely slept on, whether that's because of Kyle Pitts or
It's because of Kyle Pitts.
or air shrug, I guess.
It's because of Kyle Pitts.
Mr. Russell Gage, who is the wide receiver 56 right now with an ADP of 169.
Yeah, that's some value.
It's just,
That's some spicy value.
It's blowing my mind how, I mean, Julio leaves. He was, he was going to be the number one on the team last year, and then he was not playing football, and Calvin Ridley was like, hey, this is my team now. When Julio was off the field, again, we were kind of comparing notes before the show and just having a back and forth about this. Those are when Russell Gage's best games were. Like, the balls that were being thrown weren't going to Hayden Hurst.
They were. Hayden Hurst wasn't catching them. It's like, to his credit, he was getting targeted last season. It just wasn't working out.
But I think that the biggest thing that I like about like Julio leaving is that I think that he's going to be able to retain, if not all of the volume from last year, because maybe knock down a little bit, give Kyle Pitts, a bump from Hurst, give him, some of Julio's targets. So he'll probably get around. I'll say 90 to 110 where he was last year, because I think that he's the clear 2 on this team. He's the most experienced. He has that rapport with Matt Ryan. I think that a lot of those targets. I agree with you. I think a lot of those vacant targets are going to go to Pitts because you have to use the guy that you spent the draft capital on.
I don't see that's it.
I don't think he's going to be used to the extent that Russell Gage will be used, though, because they're not going to run Calvin Ridley and 2 tight ends and no other wide receiver. Russell Gage is always.
Typically in 2 tight end sets, you're running 2 wide receivers and 2 tight ends.
And I think Russell Gage is going to be that second wide receiver, because I think he's just the clear number 2 there. Looking at, just how Russell Gage plays too is he is a guy who even head coach Arthur Smith has said, he wants him to play multiple roles this season. So he's going to be moving around the field. He's going to be in the outside. He's going to be on the inside. Just looking at what he did last year, 72 for 786 and 4 touchdowns. At the end of the season, he scored double-digit points between, weeks 11 through 17 4 times.
He was a reliable receiver.
I think that it's just as a wide receiver too. I'm not shooting for the moon here. I'm not looking for Calvin Ridley 2.0, but I think it's very possible, especially with how the Falcons throw the ball. I think 2 years in a row they've thrown the ball the most in the league.
Yeah.
And their defense didn't get any better. It's not outlandish to say that he could be a wide receiver 3, maybe even a low-end wide receiver 2, just based on the volume he's going to get and the types of balls that are going to be getting thrown his way. So I think that, my end thing here is, even if he's not a guy who pops for you, you're paying next to. I'm seeing him go undrafted in some leagues that I'm doing, and he's a very nice depth piece. And again, if he's not working out for whatever reason, cut him because you didn't spend anything on him.
Yeah, when I look at Russell Gage, I think that the big reason people are sleeping on him is, one, he was a no-name player before last year, so no one ever even heard of this kid. He only got time because Julio was injured. That's a knock on him right there for a lot of people, because if you aren't good enough to get field time without an injury, are you actually that good? You have to remember, he was playing behind a first ballot Hall of Famer in Calvin Ridley, who looks like he's already a top 7 receiver in the league. You're not going to beat any of them out for playing time. That's just not going to happen. So it's kind of unfair to judge him based on that, in my opinion. And on top of that, he was only a sixth round draft pick, so there's no draft pedigree there. There's no capital associated with him, and people just really want to like Kyle Pitts. I will be the first to admit, if I'm wrong on Kyle Pitts, it's because he gets the work and not Russell Gage. One of the 2 of them is going to have a big jump in targets because they're going to be cannibalizing each other, basically. I see the path to Russell Gage failing, and that is Kyle Pitts being used more as a wide receiver than a tight end, and running basically the wide receiver 2 spot in those sets where Russell Gage would have been there. But I don't think that's that likely to happen because if people oftentimes in fantasy attribute their desires to a situation instead of attributing logic to a situation and thinking about it from a football perspective. Like, if they're using Kyle Pitts like that, then they aren't using Kyle Pitts like a tight end. So he's not learning the tight end position. And if he's not learning the tight end position, he's not going to develop as a tight end. They didn't draft Kyle Pitts to be a wide receiver.
I think that the more I talk about Kyle Pitts, the more I'm realizing that people are trying to talk themselves into liking Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, because he was drafted. So a good comp for him, honestly, and he's much more talented. Maybe not, but much more athletic than T.J. Hawkinson. But he was only drafted, I believe, Hawkinson was either the 8th pick or the 10th pick for the Lions 3 years ago. So he was drafted in the same range, a few picks ahead of where T.J. Hawkinson was drafted. And T.J. Hawkinson did relatively nothing his first year in the league. Like, I love the Russell Gage play because it's going to come out of left field, and it's a play where you can buy in for, like you said, next to nothing, and get a guy who has top 24 upside, legit top 24 upside, just sheerly because of the volume of that Falcons offense, and no one's in on him because everyone wants the hot new thing in Kyle Pitts.
I'm so happy Jerry Jones didn't take Kyle Pitts.
Oh, that would have been a nightmare.
I just remember sitting there like drafting, and I'm like, please don't trade up. Please don't trade up.
That would have been the most Jerry thing in the world. All right, let me talk about my second guy here, and then we can move to you to start ramping this show up. I'm going to pivot away from wide receivers for a moment and talk about one of my favorite quarterbacks to take this season in Mr. Trey Lance. This is going to be less of a statistical argument because obviously he's a rookie. So there isn't a ton of data to back this up. But I love what Trey Lance is bringing to the table. I mean, he ADP 160.5. He's the QB 19. So he's, as you were just alluding to with Russell Gage, he is also basically going undrafted. And despite that, he could end up as the best rookie QB out of this draft, this year and long term. But I mean, he's one of the only rookies that I actually want to roster this season, just out of the gates, because I want to try and beat people to rostering Trey Lance.
He's got a really good situation.
Yeah. I mean, let's third pick off the board. Like I said earlier this episode, rookie quarterbacks taken in the first round, on average, play 14 games a season. If he plays 14 games this season, he's going to finish in the top 7 at the quarterback position because that kid's got wheels. And on top of that, he's got a cannon for an arm. He's fairly accurate, and he has a great receiving core. Like Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, like these are elite receivers.
And it works out for him because Jimmy's probably going to be on the bench by week 2 just with injuries.
Yeah, I mean, or just because Trey Lance is better. Like we've talked about this too. Kyle Shanahan wants to win. He literally got to a Super Bowl with Jimmy, and Jimmy couldn't get him over the final hurdle. He knows what Jimmy is, and Jimmy isn't a winner. If they want to compete this season, actually compete for a Super Bowl, they got to ride Trey Lance. And I think that Shanahan knows that. I don't think that they spend the draft capital they did to trade up to 3 to take this kid if they don't plan on using him aggressively because they believe that he is a game changer for them at the quarterback position. I mean, and he ends up with one of the most attractive situations in football, especially for a rookie. Like I said, elite receiving core, one of the best head coaches in the league, a solid defense to help them maintain tempo and make it so that he's not just constantly out there having to throw for his life. And then, like I said, on top of all of that, you get the value of a guy who is not even being drafted, essentially, at his position. You can take him with your final pick. And if I'm wrong for some, like I was saying for Corey Davis, because that's a big thing for me with the guys that I really like late. I like guys where if I'm wrong for some reason, I just release him into the wild.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that I'm looking at where, I don't really advocate for this a lot, but I'm experimenting with streaming quarterbacks in some leagues, and he's a guy where
He's someone who I'd make an exception for and take 2 quarterbacks.
Oh no, I'm not. That's what I've been doing. I've been taking him, and I've been taking just whoever is left that has a good first week matchup, just to see, what happens. Because I also think that as far as rookie quarterbacks go, he's got the best situation. He's on a really good team that wants to win. He has a great defense behind him.
Justin Fields is in a pretty good situation too, but yeah, I agree.
Well, yeah, but Justin
the coach is a downgrade there, but I think the running game and the receivers are on par.
Yeah, I think that it just, he's another one of those guys where I don't know if I want him as my only quarterback, but if I can get...
Well, no, because there's a chance that he's not the starter for San Francisco to start the year, and if that's the case, you want to have someone to carry the load until he is. But like the reason I like him so much, everyone's trying to find the next Lamar Jackson or the next Jonathan Allen or Josh Allen.
Jonathan Allen.
Or trying to find the next Josh Allen, and everyone's honing in on Burrow and Jalen Hurts, a little bit of Justin Herbert, even though he's going a little bit earlier. But like eyeing these second or third year, actually I guess they're all second year quarterbacks. Hoping that one of them is going to be this, this transcendent runner, this breakout guy like they were. There's a good chance it's Trey Lance. I mean, he's going, like I said, when Lamar Jackson had his breakout year, he was going in the 14th round. Same with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Like, these guys, these were undrafted guys pretty much, and they came out of nowhere, and Trey Lance fits the portfolio to a T. He can do a ton of work with his legs. He's in a very proficient offense. He has great pass catchers. He has a coach who's going to bring him up the right way, teach him how to play the game. They've already said he's a very smart kid. He can make all the throws. He can complete the short throws. He's a rocket for an arm, so he can get it downfield. Like, there's nothing he can't do on a football field. And people are just overlooking him because he's a rookie. But it's like his rushing floor brings up his value so much that if he is just we've talked about this before too. There are a handful of guys in the league that have legitimate 700-yard upside on the ground, and he's in that camp. He is someone who should, if he gets a full slate of starting for the, if he gets 14 games, 15 games, he could easily rush for 700-800 yards. You just don't get that from a lot of these guys. He's the same type of cheat code as Christian McCaffrey is, where Christian McCaffrey is both a running back 1 and a wide receiver 1. It's like whenever you can combine 2 positions at one position, that gives you such an advantage over your league mates, and you pay nothing for him.
Yeah, the comp to CMC there is actually pretty... I mean, I did watch a couple of the Niners preseason games, and the snaps he played, he looked really good.
Yeah, he looks poised back there. But that's my thoughts on him. Take it or leave it. If you don't draft him, I will. Not you specifically, but
I'm thinking about it.
In any leagues that I'm not in, if people aren't sniping away from me, I'm trying to take him everywhere because I think he's just that good. Frankie, who's your final guy?
So I like this guy a lot last year. Mr. Bryan Edwards of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yes.
The wide receiver 70 at the moment.
For good reason.
ADP just undrafted.
He sort of fits into that camp that I was talking about earlier with the he needs 3 or 4 things to go right for him.
I agree to an extent. Again, I liked him a lot last year. He had that kind of same camp hype he's getting this year where he's looking really good in the red zone. But he had, a couple of lingering injuries throughout the year. Played a decent amount of games, but just he wasn't on the field a lot because of whatever those injuries may have been, like hammy, tweaked something in his leg. But, I think with Aguilar off to New England, good for you guys. And, the defense not exactly getting, super buff. I think
you could say that.
He's an interesting case here.
The Raiders did nothing to improve their defense. So, yeah, you could say their defense didn't get super buff.
Comparing him to Ruggs, I think Edwards is going to be the guy who should be going up for those deep balls on the outside. Because Ruggs, while I think Ruggs had a disappointing year because they tried to make him the deep ball guy.
Also because he was way overhyped and isn't that good.
Yeah. But I think it was because of how they were using. I'm not touching Ruggs, but I don't think that he's as bad as people think he is. I think the way the Raiders used him is terrible, because where we saw Ruggs excel last year was, the short. I think his average yards or his ADOT was 17.3. And that's not where you want to use Ruggs. You want to use him on that short ball yardage and have him run after the catch, because he can just turn and burn you. He's not going to be that deep ball guy. Bryan Edwards he has the wide receiver build. He's, I think, 6'3", 215. Like, he's going to be that guy who's going to be able to go up.
He's a big boy.
Similar to A.J. Brown. He's going to be that guy who can go up and just body the defensive back and get you those things. He's basically going to be what they wanted Ruggs to be last year. But
also, Ruggs is 6 foot, $190. He is very much a vertical receiver, or at least has the ability to be.
Who are you taking in a?
I think I haven't looked at either of them enough to describe their skill sets verbatim, but I think that they are both lukewarm interest for me.
Yeah, Edwards has almost 30 pounds on him. I think I'm going to take that guy, but I think that I'm not saying he's going to be the son of the offense, because obviously Darren Waller is going to eat up all that, but I think the Raiders are going to throw the ball a lot. Derek Carr, for as much flack as he gets, is a good fantasy quarterback. He's not a winner.
He's a good regular quarterback.
Yeah,
he's fine.
Based on everything I've seen, I think he's highly usable. I think he's probably going to be the two. I'm not worried about John Brown. John Brown's had more health issues than he has, and I think they're going to be kind of the same thing. I mean, I think one's going to play the one, the other one's going to play the two. We're going to see Ruggs out of the slot. We're going to see Darren Waller in the tight end position. I think that's just how it's going to shape up, and whoever the odd man out there is, whatever, I think the most of the targets are going to go to Waller. It wouldn't shock me if Edwards has the second most target on the team.
So I will say this for Edwards. I'm not anti-Edwards as much as it may have sounded like that. I think he has the physical tools to be a good receiver in the league. He is only 22. He was 21 last year, which is very young for an NFL player. So, like, this is a kid who isn't even done growing into his body, and he's playing at an NFL level. Like, he might not break out this year, but he is still someone who I'm interested in, especially in Dynasty. I'm interested in long term, because I think this year, next year, maybe the year after, but I think at some point he is going to emerge in this league just because he has the physical tools to succeed. He is a huge receiver. I think the only reason I might not be interested in him this year, as far as redraft is concerned, is I just don't know if the Raiders wide receiver 2 is a valuable enough position in fantasy to be drafting him at all, unfortunately. Like, I think to me, I look at the Raiders and how much they want to run the football, and they are, to me, very much a one-horse town kind of team, where it's like you want to have the first guy catching the targets, and after that it's a wasteland.
I think that I agree with that, but again, this is another guy similar to my last guy who you're spending next to nothing on. So
sure, but you have to choose down in this range. Like, he's someone who I'm probably not going to take any of this year, because I have to take him over some of the guys that I like more.
Yeah, I'll take him with my last pick, and again, if he doesn't, if I see over the first 2 weeks targets aren't going his way, cut him.
Sure.
But I think the last interesting thing that I saw is, Derek Carr, a guy who, again,
I saw this take.
Agree isn't a bad quarterback. Compared him to his old college teammate Devonte Adams, and I think that's a little bit much. But I mean, the guy has seen both of them play, and I could see it a little bit. I mean, obviously not Adams now, but I think that over time we might see him grow into maybe not.
Well, and Adams was another receiver who needed time to develop.
Yeah, I think that says a lot about how much he's being slept on.
Sure, I mean, that's you don't see Derek Carr saying that about Henry Ruggs.
Yeah.
So, I'm not gonna crap on the kid. I hope he does well. As I just for fantasy, we have to take opposing stances at some point. For fantasy purposes, I am not interested in Bryan Edwards for redraft this year. He's a guy I'm willing to be wrong on.
So you're not going to snipe. That's great.
No. All right, well, that'll do it for us for our favorite late round picks. Join us next week as we bring you our piece de resistance of the preseason. We're going to be doing our stamps of approval. I don't know why I said it like that, but it felt right. It felt right. We're going to be our stamps of approval episode next week. Your boy is holding the golden stamp as I had the most correct stamps from last year.
Are we doing 3 this year?
Yeah, we're going up from 2 to 3 because 2 is kind of a low bar. So we're going up from 2 to 3, and we're going to be bringing you that show next week, just in time for everyone to get their fantasy drafts in. So tune in then. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, issues, concerns, reach out to us on Twitter. Once again, you can see them all over the screen here. We love to hear from you guys. Any questions you guys might have, we'd love to answer them. And if you have any drafts this weekend, have a good weekend. Smoke your league mates in the drafts.